You are listening to the Beasty Bish podcast, presented by Painless Podcasts. Hey, this is Desmond Bishop, aka Beasty Bish. I would like to tell you about the Beasty Bish Foundation. My foundation is geared toward the betterment of our youth. After all, the children are the future. So I've decided to dedicate a portion of my life to help make other less fortunate kids' lives just a little more fulfilling. I'm a firm believer that whom much is given, much is required. To find out more about the Beasty Bish Foundation, visit my site at desmondbishop55.com.
What's up, man? What you been up to, bro?
Nothing, man. Raising kids and, messing around doing different broadcasting type things. What about you?
Man, just taking care of the family, coaching.
What age group you coaching?
I was just coaching high school. It was great, but I think I'm venturing off into college. So there's this new, the college been around for over 100 years, but they want to bring football to the program for the first time. And a buddy of mine is actually like the AD and head coach, and he was like, "Man, you want to be the D coordinator?" And I was like, I got these kids. So I was like, I don't really know, but he kept pressuring me, and it kind of spoke to me a little bit. So I think I might take the job.
Sweet, man. Straight to D coordinator too. What'd you coach in the high school level?
D coordinator as well.
Man, yeah, that would be fun. I could see you being very good at that. That'd be, I don't know. Like high school, the schedule seems like that's manageable. College, that's when it gets a little sketchy on how much time you have to be there, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of negotiating now, like, because it's really not negotiable once you go. High school is, it's my buddies. It's some days you get a couple hours. You have to put in time, but it's not that, it's not that much high school ball. I coached at Cal in 2017 as a QC, and that was too much. It was 4 or 5 in the morning to 12 at night. I was like, man, I didn't realize what the coaches went through.
Yeah. So would you have, if you stayed on that path, how long would you be in that role, or would you be able to move up to get a position coach job somewhere, whether Cal or somewhere else?
Yeah. I would have probably been a position coach or maybe a D coordinator, just depending on how lucky you kind of get with that. Yeah. But that was, it was the time commitment was too much.
Yeah, coaching's crazy, man. Especially if you got to recruit people too. Like if you're a college coach, that's why guys that go to the league that coach, they don't ever want to come back just because of that recruiting year round. You never stop.
Yeah, that's true. Being on the road, that's a whole other commitment outside of the whole commitment to, the X's and O's and being at the stadium and all of that stuff. So, I don't know, man. I don't know if we should be talking about this. You're about to change my mind right now.
Hey, you never know. You gotta flesh it out and see what you want to do, I guess.
Right, yeah. So now I seen you had your podcast. Man, tell me the story of how that came about. Like what you was doing. You're sitting on your toilet reading the newspaper, and he's like, you know what? I want to do a fucking podcast. Like, how did that come about?
I mean, you're not too far off. I've been a fan of, I don't know when I started listening to podcasts. I mean, now there's obviously a ton of them and they're everywhere and people are getting paid tons of money everyone hears of Joe Rogan going to Spotify and everything. I listened to Joe Rogan's podcast back in the day. I don't know when I started, but I started getting into all these different podcasts that I would just listen to randomly when I'm in my car, sometimes when I'm going to bed, put little earbuds in and listen. And then I think 2014 maybe, I was like, man, I want to do my own. I want to start my own thing and just do it. And so found a guy I know that kind of could do the technical, just upload it for me basically, because I didn't know how to do anything. I still don't really. And just started reaching out to people, man, just like sending cold emails to random people, to people that I kind of know and whatever I could do. And I did it for a while. Unfortunately, I haven't put an episode out in a long time, which is the curse of death. That's what, if you're doing a podcast, the biggest thing is to be consistent, put out consistent episodes, whether that's once a week, twice a week, whatever people's schedule was. And I was somewhat consistent for a while. And then ever since COVID hit, I started doing shows with Pat McAfee, and now I do a daily show with him, and that kind of cut down on me reaching out and trying to find people to come on. But I'm going to eventually get back into my own thing and start doing that podcast. But what I do with Pat is it's turned into a podcast. Like every show that is even on TV now, whether it's Cowherd or whatever, you can get it later, like 6 hours later as a podcast. You can download the audio version like my show with Pat is. But yeah, I'm still a huge fan of podcasts, man. I don't know about you, but I find myself listening to them throughout the day, just little snippets at a time, maybe 10, 15 minutes at a time.
Yeah, no, I guess we kind of have a similar path to getting the podcast thing started, because I think the first podcast I started listening to was Serial, and I was not a podcast like person. You know, I would, in my car on long drives, it was all music, and then one day I kind of stumbled across Serial, and I would people ride in my car, they joke like, man, all you listen to is podcast. You don't listen to no music. Every chance I get, I'm listening to somebody talk about something interesting. And I was like, you know what? I want to do this myself. So yeah, very, very similar path. So I always tell people a story on how I first heard about you in college and going into your draft class, because I think it was the 2006 draft class thing for mine. Yep. And the announcers were, they put your highlights up, a couple of plays, and one of the Mel Kiper guys to explain why you was gonna go in the first round, and so I was watching you and emulating you. So, the draft happened. I'm in my senior year, and it was a play that they broke down of yours that was good, and I was doing the same thing in the play, and I'm thinking, oh, this is the same play AJ Hawk did. Well, Mel Kiper talked about it. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going first round. But your football org, when did you start playing football? Like when did you pick it up, and when did you, or not even necessarily when you picked it up, like when did you like fall in love with it, or did you ever?
Yeah, man. I honestly love football from the beginning. I'm the youngest of three boys, so I have two older brothers. Both of them played. I was able to play. Like my middle brother is only 2 years older than me, so I was lucky enough. He was a quarterback when we were in high school. My freshman year, his junior year, we got to play together. I played running back too, so it was awesome getting to play with him for 2 years in high school. But when I was young, I started in second grade playing football. I think that's when they first let us basically start playing. But I played football, baseball, and basketball growing up, and my whole life, really. I loved basketball. I liked baseball. I enjoyed playing it, but I loved football the most. I think I knew pretty early on, too, if I wanted any kind of future, which I didn't even really think about, like college scholarships, or definitely didn't think about the NFL. But I definitely knew, like, there's something different about football. I always enjoyed it more. I always didn't mind doing I would voluntarily do all the extra work and do everything that I needed for football. And if it was baseball or basketball, yeah, I would do it, but I wouldn't be as enthusiastic, I guess, of doing the extra stuff. So I think I knew early on football was my sport for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I think there's a reason there's the ratings for the NFL draft are higher than like the NBA finals. Like football is everything right now. It's weird how it's a year-round deal talking about it. Everything seems like is blown out of proportion and made into a huge deal, but it's just because people care about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what was the first experience of yours where you knew that, okay, I have a real shot to get drafted? Or actually, let's go back to high school. When was the first moment you realized, like, oh, I got a shot at going to college and going, to a big time college?
Probably, I didn't think it was a real possibility, especially early on in high school. But I'd say maybe so my older brother was the quarterback. I got to go around with him on his recruiting visits. He would take visits. He got offered by a lot of the MAC schools, a couple Big Ten schools, but he ended up going to Miami of Ohio, and he's 2 years older than me. So I'm in high school. I would go visit him and see everything. And he came in the same year as Ben Roethlisberger, and my brother's a quarterback too. So my brother comes in. He actually played a decent amount his freshman year. Ben redshirted, And then Ben doesn't redshirt. You know, his red shirt's up. He comes back and he becomes Ben Roethlisberger. My brother played a little bit of slot receiver, but then transferred to Ohio University and he got to start for a couple of years there. So it definitely worked out still, and he's doing great. But I think I probably realized it. What was kind of weird, after my junior year, I turned 21. January 6th was my birthday, and Nick Mangold was my college roommate. His birthday is a week after mine, and so we went to Vegas for our 21st birthdays. We had like 10 people with us, my brother, buddies, and everything. And I got to Vegas, and I remember someone from Ohio State like reached out to me, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to put a statement out to say that you're coming back for your senior year?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to put a statement. Who cares? Like, does anyone care about that?" And I never thought of coming out. It wasn't like I was making a decision, like, "Oh, here, am I going to go to the draft or not?" Like, I loved being at Ohio State, and I never really even looked into it as like where I may be drafted, if I could get drafted, all that stuff. That made me start to, I guess, pay attention a little bit more. But I think if you pay attention, you worry about that, especially like in the off season, going into like your last year in college. I'm sure now, man, these kids, it would give you some anxiety. You'd be nervous. You'd be like, I don't want to mess this up. Like, and that's a long time from your winter of your junior year, leading all the way up into your senior year. I'm glad I was naive and stupid and never thought about it. But now with all the information's out there, like, it's got to freak some kids out.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting that you say that, because I assumed that, like, especially if you go to first round, you know the ins and outs of everything. So it's interesting to hear you say that you was naive too, because I was the same way. I had no idea like of that whole process and even thinking about it. And it was, I got lucky too. Like I'm kind of glad that I didn't really know about it and put that type of pressure, on myself. So like, so you were kind of naive, but you actually balled out, was an All-American. Okay. And then, so at what point was it like, all right, I can't run from this. I'm a guy. Like the people know who I am. How was that process for you? Because I know you kind of like a reserved, like, humble dude. You don't really boast and stuff like that. But what was that process like when he was like, all right, I am a guy. Like I have to accept it. Like,
I don't know if there's ever like a moment of that. Like I said before, man, I was super naive, and I think it was great for me to be naive. I think there's definitely situations where it's good to not really know like how big of a deal it is and what's going on around you. I think that every time I ever go back to an Ohio State football game, I watch from the stands, and I'm like, man, I'm so nervous for these kids, like, because every play so much rides on it. But then as a player, I never thought like that. Thank God, because I would be terrible. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's just kind of how it has to work. But I'm like nervous for them now, I guess, because I don't have control over it either. But I honestly was so caught up in just my junior year in college. We didn't play very well. We were going through different like situations. Who's our quarterback going to be? Whatever. We had Troy Smith there. I came in the same class as Troy. He hadn't really played much yet. And then heading into my senior year, honestly, I was like, man, I had a great group of guys, great recruiting class, great buddies I was playing with, and linebackers. I was like, we got to win every game. And then we came out, and I think my second game, my senior year, we got beat by Texas. Vince Young came in, and those guys it was an awesome game. But, man, they beat us, and that was crushing to me. But I guess I started to realize, like, okay, when being on campus, my, end of my junior year, going into my senior year, like, okay, like, now I'm almost done with college. Now I really have to think about what's going on after this. And I knew, like, okay, talking to people, and luckily my parents were really good at helping me throughout the whole, like, picking an agent and doing all that. They helped with all of that stuff. And I was not equipped to try to even figure any of that out right then. So I leaned on them heavy right then. But I don't know, man. Like I said, I don't know if I'm just forgetting or I didn't take time to look around and realize like what was going on around me, I think, when I was in college. And I'm kind of glad, because I was just having a good time, man. I was having a good time with my buddies, and we had a great time on the field too. So it was a good thing for me to be that naive, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, leading up to the draft, did you have any idea what round you would go in? Or did you realize that you was going to go in the first, or what was that like?
I definitely had an idea, I guess, that I would go in the first. I I never knew what to believe, though. It's like now when you watch any kind of draft coverage, every day, every hour, something changes on who's a lock to go here or there, and no one really knows what's happening. That's how I felt. My agent was telling me what he thought might happen. Other people would try to tell me, and I would just say, okay, yeah, man, yeah, I hope, sure, I hope. And I went back to my parents' house and had all my family, extended family there for the draft and everything. And I really wanted to go to Green Bay, honestly. I don't know how you felt, but where they were picking and Brett Favre was still there, I'm like, man, this would be awesome. Like, it's close to Ohio. It's the Green Bay Packers. It's Brett Favre. Brett made everybody a Packers fan, I think, back in the day. Everyone liked watching his fire and everything that went about. So I was hoping, honestly, I was hoping they were going to take me. They didn't give me any kind of indication pre-draft that they liked me or that they were going to take me at all. They kind of kept that a secret. And Ted Thompson, R.I.P., he didn't let anybody know, I guess, that he was going to take me.
Yeah, and that's interesting. That's interesting here because I've never heard this perspective of somebody who went. I thought, the earlier rounds, you have a better idea. You have conversations and stuff. So it's interesting to hear that you was kind of really like all of the rest of the people from the first to a free agency, just kind of waiting to hear what's going to happen. And I'm going back a little bit about the anxiety part. You saying like with the whole social media now, and like everything is such blown up and blown out of proportion. It seems kind of hard. Like, man, these dudes got a lot of pressure on them to play and perform and just to have fun, because it sounds like like our era, it was mostly about fun. I just want to hang out with the guys, focus on football, focus on winning, and then kind of let everything fall into place. So take us through. You get drafted. You actually want to go to the Green Bay Packers. They draft you. What are your initial thoughts about that, and what were you thinking about your future experience was going to be like?
I was obviously excited. I was pumped that they took me. I was pumped that it was going to be close for my family to be able to come to games. But I instantly thought, like, all right, well, when they drafted me, they told me, all right, well, next weekend there's a mandatory mini camp for everybody, not just for rookies, because it was Mike McCarthy's first year, so your whole team comes together. And so I started thinking, like, all right, I was still in school at the time too. I had to finish up my school throughout that whole spring semester, quarter, whatever they were on back then. But I was like, all right, I got to get to Green Bay. I got to figure this thing out. I need to learn the playbook a little bit. I need to be accountable to these dudes and show that I belong to be here. Just in the first OTA, I was thinking that. And first OTA, man, I was so gassed. I was your head's spinning. You're trying to sprint 80 yards through every tackle that you make or every tag off you have. And I was just so tired, which is kind of a normal thing. I think when you're early on, you're just trying to do too much and thinking too much. But I was excited. I wanted to meet the guys, but at the same time, it's kind of weird. You're walking into a locker room, some guys 10, 12, 15-year vets. Now I'm 21 years old, 22, strolling in there. So I was naturally a pretty quiet person anyway, but it was pretty easy for me to just shut up and just try to act like I belonged there.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And who was Winston Moss was the coach too, right?
Yeah, I had Winston Moss. I had him all 9 years there at Green Bay.
Oh yeah, dang, that's crazy. What was your experience with Winston Moss, Coach Winston Moss, the linebacker coach for the Green Bay Packers?
Also he was the XFL, the LA team, until they shut him down. Hopefully The Rock brings it back. Is Moss still going to be the guy if The Rock brings the XFL back? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I wonder. I hope so. I heard it was a league. I watched a couple games and it looked like it was getting some buzz. But I think I hope it bring him back, because I remember, I want to say ever since I got there in 2007, at least 2010, but he would interview for jobs. He would interview, and I remember us like wanting him to get hired somewhere. Mm-hmm. So if the XFL, if that's what floats his boat, I hope, that he's happy and enjoying that.
Well, Moss was great when I first got there. So he was like the first guy. I flew up to Green Bay. I remember I got drafted and they had me drive to the Cincinnati airport, got on a flight and flew to Green Bay that night actually. And I remember watching some of the later rounds in the draft in the lunchroom with Moss and just talking football and where he had been and as him as a player and everything, learn a little bit about him. But Moss is such a like a uniquely like interesting dude, like just so many different levels of that guy. Like and you always were learning about him. And I still feel like that to this day. Like you're still always learning new things about the guy. It's such an interesting life, I feel like, and how he views things. But early on, first impressions, if anyone knows Winston Moss, big, scary, intimidating dude. This big old dude that doesn't mess around and will, even though he is really goofy and fun, a lot of times his face won't show it. He's not going to show it to you. Everyone, he's even told me before, like, everyone thinks I'm a big angry dude. And I was like, because you look like a big angry dude, Moss. Like, what do you mean? You're a giant. You're a giant human. And I guess he probably actively has to like go out of his way to smile to not scare people just because people think he's pissed off or something. But he was good, man. He had me doing a lot of stuff early on. I wasn't able to go to OTAs because of whatever the rule was. Like my school was still in session, so I couldn't come to OTAs. So I could only come. I came to like I was able to come to the last like one or two OTAs and then the mandatory mini camp. So I felt like I was missing out on everything. I'm like, man, I'm not out there at practice. I'm gonna be so far behind. But then luckily I had some vets came up to me, and now I realized that later on, when I was a couple years in, they're like, hey man, I know you might be worried about it. It's gonna be great. It's a great thing that you don't have to be here for these OTAs. Save your body. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I'm like, oh, okay. And then later on, I'm like, oh, it probably was. It was, I didn't miss too much. I was able to come in and for that last mandatory mini camp and training camp and be all right. But Moss would send me all the talk about back in the day, DVDs of the practices and then all of these sheets. And I would diagram every single play that happened in OTAs. I'd draw all 22 people. This took me, and I was on a DVD player in my wife's parents' basement watching all this, breaking it down, drawing all this stuff. It took a massive amount of time. And I don't think Moss ever asked for it. I don't think I ever turned it into him, but he had me do it. And it was probably good for me, man. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, no, I was about to say that it has to be some benefits from doing that, just from a knowledge of the game standpoint and understanding where you need to line up and how you need to. I mean, that's a huge part of playing football, playing linebacker, and being a good one at that. Were you nervous coming in and playing like your first game? Like what was that like for you? Your experience, your first game, first time taking the field?
I don't know if I was, man, I never felt like I got super nervous or anything to play. I would honestly the things I would get nervous for are like conditioning tests, things like that, where the coaches are going to kill. Like, I'm like, all right, I know, especially college. We'd run 20 half gassers in college the night before the conditioning, like the week before the conditioning test. You just can't sleep. We're always like, man, why am I playing football? Why am I here? Like, that's what the stuff that I would get truly nervous for. First game, I wasn't nervous. I wasn't really nervous. I guess I got like real anxious. I just wouldn't. Sometimes I'd be pissed and just want to get to the game. Like if there was a long period, like say you had a night game or whatever, I always hated waiting. Like I always hate warm-ups too. I like going out to warm-ups, running around a little bit, feeling good, and then getting out of there until the game starts. Like I didn't like hanging out in 20-minute warm-ups. And all of a sudden the coach gets mad and now we're going full contact, 11 on 11 and individual in warm-ups. And I'm like, man, come on. Like I just wanted to get to the game. But my first game, I believe it was against Chicago. My first game, I think Devin Hester took like the first kickback for a touchdown. I'm like, oh, cool. This is good. I'm like, that guy's really good. He's my age. I think we're in the same class too. Actually, we are. And so I got to see Hester a million times. He's a monster. He's so good. But yeah. I do remember, it's like anything though, any game, whatever level you play in, the first time you can get in and actually either get blasted or blast somebody else or get a good pop in, then you calm down, you feel part of the game. But until that moment, you don't really feel part of the game. At least I wouldn't. I would have to get mixed up in some action, some physicality, I think, to really get me feeling good and take all that. If I was anxious or even a tiny bit nervous, like take that away and just kind of get into the groove.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And they say after that first hit, you ready to go. And sometimes it helped to get popped, get your bell rung a little bit. Okay, all right.
That's the worst that can happen. Like, I'll be here all day, bud. Like, I don't like, especially if a guy hits you good and he thinks, like, say it looks really bad, but it doesn't really hurt. Like, I would just laugh at the guy, like, all right, cool, man. Like, hey, I'm not going anywhere. Like, you're not going to hit me that hard again.
Man, and one thing about you, I played with you, and your actions spoke louder than your words. But what motivated you? Like what about the game? Like the competition, just to be out there playing. Like what was your driving force that propelled you all of these years and all with all of your success on the field? Like what drove you?
Man, that's a good question. I've tried to think about that over time. I mean, I think like a huge impact on me was, like I said, I grew up the youngest of three boys. I was just chasing my older brothers around. I just wanted to be them, to play what they did. And so when I was young, like I couldn't imagine playing for the varsity team, like my high school varsity team. Like I would watch those guys walk out. My oldest brother, when all of a sudden he's playing on the varsity football team, like, man, this is a fantasy world. Like I don't know if I could ever get there. I still remember the guys had the metal tip screw-ins, and listening to them walk out of the locker room on the pavement, I was like, oh man, these are the best football players on the planet. Aren't those? They get to wear these metal screw-ins. I always couldn't wait to get to high school and wear metal screw-ins. But I think honestly, I don't know what it's like anything else. I hate when I don't hate it, but a lot of people love to tell you like, oh, I'm the most competitive person in the world. Like, okay, well, usually you don't have to tell people you're the most, like, the toughest guy in the room doesn't have to tell people he's the toughest guy in the room. So I think being competitive, wanting to being intrinsically motivated, like not being motivated by all the stuff that football brings you, but what, like the fun that you can have when you are playing with guys that you really enjoy playing with, playing, like being on a good team that has a chance to win every single game you're in. Like, I don't know, like that part, like I never expected to lose going into a game. Usually every game, because I've been very lucky and had great quarterbacks throughout my career, I felt like, yes, we have the advantage. We should win this game. And I feel like playing 2 years with Brett Favre and the rest with Aaron Rodgers, hey, we should win every game. And it's about the competitive nature of it. I just really enjoyed that.
Hey, that's awesome. Did you ever go into games like, all right, yeah, I want 15 tackles this game, like, or
not really, man. I never really did. No, because there was games I played in. I know where I didn't play well, but I'd have a lot of. You'd have like, oh man, look, you 13 tackles. I'm like, yeah, I played it garbage. I just fell into those or something, like. And then there's other games where you feel like you played great, and then someone's like, man, what happened? You only had 6 tackles. I'm like, all right, buddy. Like, you watch the tape. Like, so I never really got into that too much.
Yeah, no, that's all. Man, you remind me of a tough kid, like in Ohio, like running around, playing all of the sports. Growing up, with your 2 older brothers, chasing after them. Do you think that helps you more, or helps you so when you play with kids your age, you were able to be dominant?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just honestly getting beat up by them. Like my oldest brother, I'm still scared to death of. The dude he's a big electrician, lives in Dayton, Ohio, and he just barely speaks, but everyone has so much respect for him. He's a super happy dude, but he doesn't feel the need to give us you could be in a room with him for 20 minutes and he won't say anything and he's going to be perfectly fine. He's not uncomfortable at all. Normally it's uncomfortable. You feel like you have to make something, but with my brother, he's good. And I respect that. And I respect his toughness and who he is. And my middle brother too, he was a quarterback. So he was kind of like, they call him the golden boy growing up. He was the man. He's like pretty boy quarterback, but we always had a real healthy relationship where, we would kill someone for it. Like anyone wants to, okay, yeah, like that's we were tight like that, but we never had any jealousy or even like competitive, weird stuff with us. It's always been super supportive, I think, because we've always wanted each other to succeed. But yeah, with them, I still to this day, I'm 37 now. Like, they're still on my mind. Like, I know if there's things I say or do, like, I know if it's, I don't know, if it's just weird or different or goes against who I am really, like, I'm going to get a text or a call. They'll be like, hey, man, like, like, come on now, you're a loser. Like, I know that they're always there. They're going to hold me accountable. So believe me, I always think about that still.
Oh man, that's awesome. I was just talking about that with my buddies on the last podcast. We was talking about how I think ultimately, and it's just my opinion, but the people who I'm the closest friends with, they understand me enough to where if I deviate from who I am, I'm gonna get a text or a call like, hey, what's this? Like, you know what I mean? And then the same thing for them. So we kind of hold each other, accountable.
Everybody needs that. Don't you think everybody needs that? That's a problem, man. Especially like pro athletes, they can get. I understand how it happens, but people have to fight against it. Especially some of these, like, think of basketball players, the crazy money they get, the guaranteed contracts, and just the people around them. Like, if you look around and everyone you're hanging out with is on your payroll, like, guess what, man? Like, they're doing you a disservice. You need people to be able to hold you accountable. And sometimes that could be a family member. Sometimes that could be your friends. It doesn't matter. But man, you got to find those people.
Right. And I would venture to say that if the players or anybody in positions of any kind of success, if they do fall off, you probably can point to them not having that person to reel them back in. And like you said, I could see easily how, a guy can have a whole bunch of guys on his payroll and nobody really holding them to a standard. And the pitfalls of that is tragic, really. But yeah, so man, having good friends is very important. Friends who are gonna hold you accountable. But yeah, man, I could picture your brother, how he is in my mind, Midwest tough dude, just, hey man, get shit done and no complaint. And it your brother's definitely influenced you. I can tell. What else? I hope you can edit this part out when I don't know what to ask. What advice would you give? First of all, these young, kids who about to get drafted, who going into the draft, whether it be first round or undrafted as a free agent. What advice would you give them? Just in general.
I mean, it is so different now. Think of like guys coming out now than when like I got drafted than you right after me. Like, it's a different time. Like, there's just so much going on around them. Sure, social media has changed a lot, but they've grown up with it. A lot of them, I don't think, take it. I don't know if you would know better than I would probably, but like I see younger players and kids and whatever, just actually younger people, stuff that sometimes people post online. Like, sometimes I'm blown away, but at the same time, I'm like, you put this picture up, and I can imagine, like, I would feel very weird. I don't know, insecure, whatever, putting up pictures. Say it's somebody that puts up, I don't know, some random weird, like, picture of themselves, and whatever comes at them, they don't care. Like, it's just right off their back. I feel like they grew up with it, and I don't sit there and dive into comments or care when people, like, I understand, yeah, of course, if you're doing anything online or you're any kind of public figure, you're putting something out there should be good and bad come at you. Like, no one should be all positive. But I feel like, man, some young people, it's just, they can wade through it. They just get through it easier. It doesn't bother them like it may bother some older people. We know a lot of people that if they read one negative comment on a YouTube video or whatever, they're in the tank for 6 weeks. Like, there's people like that. I don't want to be that person, but I feel like these young kids coming out, they can handle all this stuff around them better just because they've probably grown up in it. But if I had to tell them anything, like, it doesn't matter when you're drafted. You know that, like, if you come in and you can play, like, you'll be noticed day one. Like, if you start flashing a little bit early, no matter when you were drafted, just make 1 or 2 plays a day, or just do things where, even little subtle things to where maybe the vets on your team will notice something you do. Like, just whatever it may be. If you know the install that day really well, and you help your teammate out, and you stay backside on a play when it was really easy to run over the top and get screwed, like doing little things like that, I think can earn your teammates' respect, but also your coaches. Like the position coaches, they all watch the film together. They'll notice if a guy continues to do things right, making plays and just flying around and having fun. And I wouldn't. And also, there's no one thing that is the answer or the way. There's no special pill you can take that's going to make you successful. Like I know, at least with me, you got to figure out what works with you. For me, it's just about being consistent with everything that I do, and that's kind of how I've been my whole life. But just whatever I've done, I try to be consistent and durable and show up every day. And, especially early on, you don't have to say a whole lot. But even if you do come in as a rookie, though, and you are a loud guy and you do talk or whatever, if you're making plays, good. I think that's even better. Like, doesn't matter what you do. As long as you're making plays and you're playing well, you can legit do whatever you want pretty much. And whatever your personality it is, just let it be.
Right. Yeah, and I agree. But you have to make plays. I think you have to go. These young kids, no matter where you get drafted, because the film is going to be on. They watch it. They watch everything. So whenever you have an opportunity to take the field, you got to make the most of it. And especially, me, being drafted 6th round, I knew that coming in. I got to make the most of every opportunity. Because you never know when, you'll get another one.
But for you, I don't know if you felt this or not, Bish, but like a lot of the people don't know when you're drafted. No one looked at you as a 6th round pick from day one. You came in, I'm like, this dude could easily be a 1st round pick. So it's not like, that's not like stuck with you as you make plays. Like no one ever thought you were a 6th round pick even early, even your first day there. So it's, if you're making plays and you're doing the right things, man, yeah, you can, and do everything. Don't turn anything down. Like if a coach, even if it's something you don't want to do, you don't think you should do, just say, yeah, probably early on would help you. If you're a guy making the team. I heard Mike Lombardi, a guy say, who was a GM and everything in the league. He said like 6th and 7th round picks have about a 15% chance of making the team. I don't know if you've ever heard that. That seems low, but I mean, I don't know. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it is definitely lower. I don't know the percentage of it, but it's definitely lower, especially on good teams who kind of already established. They already have exactly how they want to, their program.
The Bucks I think Bruce Arians has come out and even said like they know they need to trade up because he's said like, hey, like 4th, 5th, 6th round picks probably aren't going to make this team right now with how their roster's built, and they just returned 22 starters from the Super Bowl.
Right. So if you come in as a 6th rounder, you have to be a true steal, and it comes back to what we were saying, like you have to find a way to add value, even if it means doing the little things and being consistent, being on time, making your plays, doing the correct thing, more times than not, and there's going to be a learning curve too. So you got to pick up on the learning curve fast. And then, and it was something important you said. It was like you understood who you were. And I think when you understand who you are, then you can just operate better. So,
and you don't have to chase all the things. Like I 100% would bug veterans all the time and ask them and watch. I would always watch what their plan was, because if a guy's a 10-year vet in the league, there's a reason. He's come up with a plan, whatever works, and so I would love to watch all those people, but also at the same time, coaches will always tell you, hey man, watch this guy. Make sure you do what he does. He comes in at this is the time he gets in. I'm like, all right, well, some of that, like, yeah, maybe at times, but if you try to do what everybody's doing, you're going to waste a lot of time, and some guys are wasting a whole hell of a lot of time. So you got to figure out what not to do too, and it's not always like, hey, this guy. Follow this person. Okay, I can take a little bit from him, and then craft it and figure out what works for you. I know through my whole time in the league, like I was always making tiny like tweaks to how I went about everything, like especially with my workouts and what I was able to do to be like, to make sure I was healthy on Sundays. Like I'm always tweaking that as I go, and it's just kind of a learning process. I think you just got to pay attention.
Right. Well, what veteran for you was the most impactful in your life, or who became who was a teammate and became a friend, or somebody who you looked up to and took a lot from?
Man, that's one of the things being drafted by Green Bay. Like there's a lot of them. honestly. There was some, Bish, like there's some great dudes on that roster. Like
Yeah.
they did a good job of bringing in people that would fit in the locker room, that cared about winning. Like just do things the right way for the most part, I feel like. But honestly, when I first came in, Nick Barnett, Nick well, obviously. Nick was awesome. He's such a stud player. But he was, from the day I walked in, was super like welcoming. Always like we're going over to his house. He's hosting, Halloween parties, New Year's
Sure.
party. Like Nick was great for the team, but he was huge for me to lean on, especially early on in my career. It was fun to play with Nick because he was so violent. He's so fast and just does not scared ever to run his head into anybody. One of my favorite things during games was trying to separate Nick when he was getting into fights, either sometimes with the referee, sometimes with the players. But like getting in between and listening to the stuff Nick would say to people would make me laugh in the moment. When he was like, he would be like just so upset in the stuff he's. I'm like, man, Nick, you're the best. Like it was just so fun. And then coming off the sideline afterwards, and we get to talk about it and laugh about what he. And then all of a sudden he would calm down, and then he would just start to laugh about what he did. I'm like, man, this is awesome. I could do this every day. So he was huge for me. Those guys are you have to, man. But I like so many guys I think of over my years, like Johnny Jolly too, man. He was in my class, but what an awesome teammate, guy that loved football. Man, there's a million guys. There's a lot of offensive guys. I came in and for some reason I sat in the team meetings right next to Aaron Rodgers, and so for 9 years there I sat next to Aaron. So I got to learn a lot from him just by watching him and what he would do and the notes he was taking on his computer during our team meetings and stuff. Like especially early on, back when they used to give all the quarterbacks laptops back in the day. Now that everyone has iPads, but the quarterbacks were the only ones that used to have laptops. And he would have all these. I would just look over and see his stuff. He would always be typing before the meeting would start, and it was what was going on, like the game plan. But then he would have all like notes on what he's looking at, what the team might have done in the past against him. His recall was so crazy on how he could picture exactly what happened in a certain play in certain games. But I remember that, and I would use all of those things, like learn the little things on how to study film and how to do everything, and just craft it and what worked for me, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you think about A-Rod and his Jeopardy? Have you watched it?
Oh yeah, because I know how big of a fan he is of Jeopardy. I've been around him a few times when Jeopardy is on. It's so annoying because you're having a conversation, he's just yelling out he's listening to the TV as he's having a conversation, and then he's just yelling out the answers. What is Tuscaloosa? And then he's like, okay, well, what about that car? Like he's in a conversation as he's answering Jeopardy questions. So I'm like, all right, man, it's one or the other. Like pick one. But I'm not surprised that he did very well. I'm not surprised that he is trying to make the push to become the full-time Jeopardy host at some point. But yeah, it's a job that people probably think would be somewhat easy, but I guarantee you that is damn near impossible to make it look smooth and to be good at that. Like that is not easy, man. Like people think it is, but that is, I hope maybe, I don't know, maybe they don't think it's easy. I look at it, I'm like, man, that seems like a daunting task to try to host Jeopardy. I know he put a lot of prep into it, but yeah, I think anything Aaron wants to do, he'll be great at.
Right. Yeah. He has that swag, man. That all-star swag I wouldn't be able to do Jeopardy, bro. I ain't lying, Mike.
Oh, so hard. Like I saw his stuff when he's he posted a picture of all the notes he had up at his little podium and everything, and I started to think about the toughest part of the whole show would probably be when he has to talk to the contestants and they have to have like a short little 30-second conversation basically, and then keep it moving like that. Just doing that is very difficult.
Yeah, no, for sure. I know it's going to take a lot of preparation, but it seems like football prepared them for Jeopardy. Like, who would have thought?
Yeah, what a weird life. Yeah, that turns into it. What if Aaron all of a sudden is the Jeopardy host for the next 35 years, and like the next generation of kids coming up, they know Aaron as the Jeopardy host and not as the football player.
It's like, you can throw a ball? No way.
He's like, yep, now I'm making $20 million a year hosting Jeopardy, guys. Have fun, I'm a billionaire now.
Oh, man. That'd be amazing. But, yeah, man, what else? you got for my dog, man. I appreciate you for coming on, though, man.
Of course, man. I think it's awesome you're doing it. Are you having fun? You enjoy it?
Yeah, I enjoy it. And I talk to my friends and even random people. I just go up to them and just start talking. And I'm a shy kind of person. I'm reserved, but I was like, man, it's 2021. I'm gonna just get out of my shell, and I'm gonna just go for it. And so I've been doing little things like just random people. I just strike up a conversation, and and actually, it's crazy how the universe works. I was at some little outdoor dining thing. I was trying to get a quick breakfast, and this older German lady comes up to me, and she's like, "How you doing?" I was like, "I'm doing great. How you doing?" She was like, "What do you think of the shooting, the cop stuff?" I was like, "Oh man, you trying to open up? You trying to go there?" I was like, I think it's unfortunate, and the system is, can be harsh against Black people sometimes, and all people in general, but mainly I'm talking about Black people because as an African American or so-called Black person, like what's going on affects me. You know what I mean? So I can't really speak for other, sections of the population, but we just had a weird conversation. I was like, man, the universe is bringing it to me, and so I'm gonna keep taking it and keep doing it, man. Hopefully, get some good people on here and make some good interviews.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Are you still writing any? You're always writing lyrics and stuff. You writing any like screenplays or scripts?
Yeah, I finished one. So actually, the one I started when I was in Green Bay, I finished it, and now I'm working on another. I'm working on a sitcom right now.
Sell it to LeBron. Isn't LeBron producing stuff? Let's push it out to him.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, that would be amazing.
He has a production company, I think. So yeah, man, we need to have somebody get it over. And Maverick is Mav Carter? That's his guy, right? I don't know any. I wish I don't have any ins with anybody. I wish I did.
Yeah. Now I'll man, I might have to reach out, man. Hopefully, I can get LeBron on this podcast and interview him. But yeah, now so I am. I'm still writing. I'm working on a couple of different things. I got BOK Prime. Oh yeah, you gotta get downloaded in your app store. It's basically urban Netflix. It's urban Netflix. Most of the content is from like minority, leads, minority directors, minority producers. But so we have an array of everything on there. So I'm pretty much kind of invested in a company to really invest in myself and so I can learn and, I can be on any set and learning, lighting, learning, from top to bottom. So,
that's cool, man. That's what's awesome with everything going on, all the different, there's a billion different platforms and areas. Like you can make your own stuff. Like you could legit make a movie. Like and you don't need a whole lot of crazy cost around it, but you just got to learn the whole system and how it works.
Right. And that's the good part about it. And that's what the people who've been making films forever, they're like, man, you guys are lucky. You're in a time now where with less than nothing, you can not only make a movie, but you'll have a platform to distribute it. So, man, I'm looking to take advantage of it.
That's smart. The thing I do is, so when COVID hit in March, whenever it was, back in, what is that? How long are we? We're over a year now, obviously.
Yep.
I've been doing some stuff with Pat McAfee. He had a show, and I remember I texted him legit on Sunday. And when I knew that the next day was when they canceled all of our kids' schools and everything, and I was like, hey, man, we need to do a show. We should do something during COVID because sports are getting shut down. Like there's going to need, like, let's do a little talk show or something. And so the next day we started this thing. We started doing like an hour and a half on his YouTube channel. He has a ton of subscribers and a huge following. And then it's grown and whatever. And now I join him 5 days a week and on his radio show that he does that's on YouTube at the same time too, which is the main thing he cares about is growing his YouTube audience because it's crazy. And it's all himself. It's all your own stuff. So it's weird how fast, I guess, things can happen and how you can kind of, you put it out there. If people like it, it's great, man. That's why when people say, oh, there's like a billion podcasts. There's too many. I'm like, no, there should be 10 billion, because then guess what? Like the good ones are going to stick around and people are going to find them. Like I'm always looking for new. I'm sure you are. You've listened to podcasts. I'm always trying to find new ones with different guests that I like. There's never like you can't have too much good stuff out there.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And especially with the YouTube, it's so many people on YouTube that whatever you do, you can. It's so many people that you can reach. You know what I mean? It's not. You don't have to just speak to one audience. Like it's the world.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, literally the world, and it could you could do something right now. You could do something today, and then a year from now, somewhere in some other country, they stumble on it, and then they become big fans, and then they tell other people about it. So it's weird. It is crazy to think of the reach you could have.
Right, for sure. Yeah, I'm. And so you like this. You like podcasting. You like talking. You sound like this is this the future for you?
Yeah, like I always wanted to do broadcasting stuff. I wanted to call games, like work as a color analyst. And I actually do. This past COVID year, a couple of my games got canceled, but I do some college games, and I enjoy it. I like being there. I like trying to figure out what's going on, how offenses are trying to attack the defense and all of that. I always want to do that. I'd like to continue to do games, and it'd be awesome to call NFL games someday if I could. But then I did a lot of stuff on Sirius. I've done a lot of different radio shows with Sirius and everything. But what I'm doing with Pat right now is it's the most authentic I can be. Like it's the most comfortable I am in the setting, because it's pretty freewheeling. We get to talk whatever we want. It's heavily all NFL stuff, mainly a little bit of college football, but I don't have to touch on stuff that I don't really know about. Like I was doing some shows on the Big Ten channel on Sirius, and I told him going in, I'm like, hey man, I watch football. Like I don't really watch a whole lot of other sports right now. And I have buddies that work on that channel, and they're talking like every other sport. They're like, oh, the women's softball team and then the basketball team. Like, hey, I'm sorry, bud. Like, I don't see a whole lot of that. Like, right now, football kind of it's what I enjoy watching. And when I try to watch other stuff, at times it can be a chore. So luckily, what I'm doing right now is right in my, where I want to be, where I can none of it seems like work. And that's my goal.
Nice. So, upcoming draft, man. What do you think about the quarterbacks, real quick? Like, do you have an opinion on who's the best out of that young group? It's about 5 of them.
How tough is that? I don't know, man. Like Trevor Lawrence, he's been around. Everyone's known him forever. You would think, yeah, things should work out for the kid. He seems to have like the total package. I don't know if they'll have the pieces around him in Jacksonville. It seems like they're trying for sure. And Urban Meyer obviously will make a huge impact there. My buddy who I play with at Ohio State, Anthony Schlegel, is the head strength coach down there now too. He's another good dude that he'll have those guys probably. It's going to be. I cannot imagine the workouts he will be taking them through. But the BYU kid, Zach Wilson? I don't always mess his name up. Zach Wilson. Yeah. I mean, I love everything about him. I just don't know what I was doing. Why I didn't know much about him until lately. Like I guess I should have known earlier what this kid can do. I saw his pro day, and people try to say he's like, yeah, he does some stuff that's like Aaron Rodgers / Mahomes kind of. I'm like, yeah, he can make some throws that they do like on air. Can you do that in a game when it matters? He seems to have the moxie. I like how he carries himself. But Justin Fields, man, like I don't count him out anywhere. Like even, I guess it seems like it's locked in, right? That Zach Wilson's going 2, but Justin Fields could easily be there number 3 for the Niners to take. I know Trey Lance is a stud. Mac Jones, he looked great. I just don't know. I don't know about him. It's such a tough thing to evaluate quarterbacks to know if they're going to do well at the next level, because so many things kind of have to be in place around them. Like you got to have a good offensive coordinator that knows your strengths and weaknesses and can put you in position to make plays. And obviously you have to have a line and some people around you, but it's so hard because chances are those 5 guys, there's a good chance that 2 or 3 of them are going to burn out and aren't going to be that great. Like who are those 2 or 3 guys? I don't know.
And that's you just going off of statistics, right? So you can't have it's rare that you don't have 5 quarterbacks, have stellar careers all drafted in the same class. So I guess time will only tell how it all shake out.
It will. Yeah, there's so many moving parts, man. That's the thing. Like, and people are so they're so quick to like call a quarterback a bust or like, oh, bad draft pick. People say that about Tua. Like the dude's been there for what, 9 games he's played? 10, like, come on, like you got to give people more of a chance. And at the same time, Justin Herbert, who had an unbelievable season, we're like, oh, it's the greatest draft pick ever. Justin Herbert he's gonna play 20 years and be a 7-time MVP. People were talking like, no, he's awesome and he had an awesome rookie year. Let's just keep him healthy and hopefully he can continue to do that.
Right, for sure. Totally agree.
How's Cal doing? How are they going to be?
I'm not sure. I feel like it's so hard to get into Cal that you lose a lot of the good players, and it's going to be hard to really compete on a high level. When the university, it's just so hard to get in. So you miss out on a lot of good talent. So I think, I think with Wilcox, I think he's going to definitely overachieve. I think I can only hope that they, pull something out and make a good run. But time will tell. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I hope they're good. I have faith in the coaching staff. I know Justin Wilcox is going to work hard and do his best. So can't count him out.
Yeah, he seems like a good guy for the job. It's so hard to win in college football, man. It's like your whole staff has to be such good recruiters to bring in like the top tier talent. And then once you get there, yeah, you have to develop them. But I don't know. The coaching at high level college football seems almost impossible to me. And I have a bunch of friends that are all over college football and they love it, but man, they are nonstop.
So how does Nick Saban, how does he do it? He just rolling them in.
It's crazy. He's Nick Saban. He's one of the best ever. I mean, probably the best college coach ever to do it. It's weird. Once you get to a certain level, the school, I think, starts to kind of recruit itself, but they would never tell you that. Anytime I say any, I have buddies that coach at Ohio State, I'm like, well, you've done it, kind of recruits itself, doesn't it? You guys, people want to come here. He's like, yeah, it doesn't work like that. He's like, we had this guy that you say, oh, cool, this kid from Cleveland, and he's a 5-star. No, yeah, of course he came to Ohio State. And then my buddy's like, yeah, I've been driving to that kid's basketball games for 3.5 years, sitting with his family, calling him every 6 days and tweeting at him. Like, for every single one of these players, they have to do that. And the majority of them, you don't end up getting them to come to school.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. And I think it's a different time now. And maybe you can speak to it too as a young kid coming up. And if you have the opportunity, it's like, man, I want to go to Ohio State. If I'm from Ohio, I'm good enough to go. Or if I'm from, Michigan area, go to Michigan. If I'm from LA, go to USC. I feel like that type of situation, like loyalty, I guess, to your region is non-existent. I think kids nowadays just go to wherever it's, the coolest or wherever, they fit in and not really want to stay home. Was that your experience?
Well, not for me. So I grew up about an hour and a half from Ohio State, and people in Ohio are crazy Ohio State fans. I live in Columbus now, and so I definitely see it. I was an Ohio State fan, but I wasn't like a crazy over-the-top fan. I loved Florida State growing up. One of my dad's buddies used to buy us the starter jackets, and I had all the Florida State gear, and it made me a huge Florida State fan. And they had some absolute monsters when I was there, when I was a kid. I mean, just every year they had so much talent. They were fun to watch. But I knew, once it looked like it was possible to get a college scholarship, my whole goal was, how do I get Ohio State to offer me? That's all I cared about. That's all I tried to do. I ended up going to camp after right after my junior year in high school, going into my senior year. That summer, I went to Ohio State's camp and was able to get a scholarship there. And that's the only reason I went. I was like, man, I need to do whatever I can here to get offered. And they offered me, and Coach Tressel offered me, and I said, yep, sounds good. Yep, I'm in. Count me in. And he's like, easy. You need to go talk to your parents, whatever, and give me a call back in a week or so. I'm like, all right, no, I'm just telling you, they're in too. They would kill me if I said no, but I'll talk to them, Coach, but I'm in. Don't give my scholarship to somebody else. That's all I cared about. I just didn't want to go somewhere else. So yeah, it was, for me, that's how it was. But now it's different too, because and if they're open about it. Like before, it was like, hey, come to Ohio State, let's try to win a national championship and all this stuff. But now I think most schools, especially big ones, they're recruiting like, hey, we're going to send you to the league. Like, here we go. Look at this. Look at our guys. Look at when you walk into their facilities, you see all their NFL guys on the walls and everything, and you recruit to that now. Like, hey, you want to go to the league? You come here. Look at the talent we produce in the NFL, and why you're on your way to the NFL, hopefully win a few national championships. So it's not any better or worse. It's just different on, I guess, how they can kind of sell it to kids.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's an interesting take. Yeah, I can see that making sense. It's about because now it's about the league, because when I and I always think about this too. I had the options of going to USC or Cal, and I was like I ultimately picked Cal because it was close to home. Like, this is the Bay. This is our team, and so I had that kind of pride, but I always look back and say, man, should I have gone to a team that was more that would get me ready for the league more so, like a SEC type of school where it's like it's about winning, but it's also about how do I develop so I can get to the next level.
Yeah, it's a tough decision for a lot of people, man. It's I don't know. I think when I was in high school coming out, I would have probably been scared to death to add, like with the coach that was recruiting me. I'm like, yeah, but how many linebackers do you guys send to the league? Like, kids ask coaches that now. Like, I would never have been able to ask a coach that in that situation.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Back then I would never do that. I think I'm assuming kids do that more so now. Like, it's part of it. It's part of the game. And And I don't blame them. If you feel like you have a chance of actually going to the league and doing that, then, more power to you, being aware of what you need to do and how your process needs to be handled. So that's cool.
Yeah, they're way more aware of like, I guess, everything that goes into it now. People were a lot more naive back in the day, and they're not. I think it's good. It's good that players have more power now than they ever have, and they seem like. You watch a college practice, I'm like, man, these dudes have way more fun than we had at college practice. They got music in between every period. The coaches are going crazy. I'm like, man, these dudes, this is not what practice was when I was in college.
Right. Yep. All right. I ain't gonna hold you, man. I just want to appreciate you for coming on. We got to do this again, man. Or you can bring me on your podcast if you get it going.
Yeah.
Anything, man. I'm willing to get on. You're always welcome here. Man, much appreciated.
Hey, thanks, man. Good to talk to you, and good luck with all the podcasts and everything. I think you're gonna kill it. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to do. So I have some teachers and different people that I grew up with that still will reach out to me like, man, we've never heard you speak. And then this is kind of what I do now. Yeah, I guess it is kind of weird how it changes, but yeah, I didn't say a whole lot through high school. So everyone changes.
Yeah, now I don't know how you were in college, but I know in the league you didn't talk much at all. Man.
I know.
Showed up, did your work.
Yeah. It's weird. It's a weird journey everybody's on, I guess. You find stuff you enjoy and never want. When I was, especially early on in my career, I would have. If you told me I was going to do anything with the media or broadcasting, I would have laughed at you for sure.
Definitely, man. Well, appreciate you for coming on. Until next time, bro. Stay safe, man.
You too, man. Thanks.
All right. Have a good one.
See you, man.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Beasty Bish podcast. I started this podcast with the hope of sharing stories of my life after the NFL, as well as share the stories of all the many amazing and interesting people I've had the pleasure of meeting throughout my career. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lutman of Painless Podcast, for making this podcast possible. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast and share it with others. For more information about me and the Desmond Bishop Foundation, check out my website at desmondbishop55.com.